Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the ChrisInformation podcast. I am your host, Chris Cella, former congressional press assistant to Congressman Matt Gaetz, former social media coordinator for the Daily Caller, and a freelance entertainment news writer. Now, we have a news update on Kamala Harris coming from Breitbart. The headline reads, Head of Global Investment Firm, Kamala Harris, an economic illiterate who will crash the U.S. economy. Scott Bessent, founder and CEO of Keysquare Group, a global macro investment firm, told Breitbart News Saturday that Vice President Kamala Harris is an economic illiterate who would crash the economy if elected president. Bessent spoke to Breitbart News Saturday host Matthew Boyle as Democrat presidential nominee Harris delivered an economic program on Friday, promising to institute price controls to combat inflation in rent and groceries. Bessent said it's clear that she's an economic illiterate. She said price gauging, not gouging, and she's just reading talking points.
And I will work to pass the first ever federal ban on price gauging on food.
Bessent noted that the Washington Post's editorial board slammed Harris's economic agenda. The Post wrote, it's a real political issue for Ms. Harris. One way to handle it might be to level with voters, telling them that inflation spiked in 2021 mainly because the pandemic snarled supply chains and that the Federal Reserve's policies, which the Biden-Harris administration supported, are working to slow it. The vice president instead opted for a less forthright route, blaming big business. Of course she did. She vowed to go after price gouging by grocery stores, landlords, pharmaceutical companies, and other supposed corporate perpetrators by having the FTC enforce a vaguely defined federal ban on price gouging. Bessent added, she is beginning hard left, and the Washington Post is in a panic because they want her to move to the center rather than show her real character. This is great. On Sunday, Governor Gretchen Whitmer said Americans were, quote, reading too much into the specifics of Harris's economic plan. Take a look at this.
The vice president laid out some of her economic policies this week. Among other things, she's proposing a ban on price gouging. Here is what Obama administration economist Jason Furman had to say. He said, quote, this is not sensible policy, and I think the biggest hope is that it ends up being a lot of rhetoric and not reality. There's no upside here, and there is some downside. He warned effectively that price controls could ultimately stifle economic growth. So do you think that's the best way to bring down prices in Michigan?
Well, I think people are reading too much into what has been put out there.
I mean, what's next? Is Kamala supposed to explain her policy position on gun control or abortion? I mean, what are people thinking reading into Kamala Harris's nightmarish economic policy? She's running for president, and she's a strong, capable, competent woman. So leave her be. Stop asking questions. Shut up and obey and vote as many times as you can. Kamala Harris, the woman who is now publicly taking stances against her own administration's policy decisions, explaining that it wasn't her policy. No. That was the frail, senile man who occasionally sits in the Oval Office. It's all Joe's fault. Kamala Harris was appointed as the border czar, and 3 years later, we don't have a border. Wild. And Gretchen Whitmer reminding us all that we're not smart enough to navigate the complexities of Kamala Harris's economic policies, or any of her policies for that matter. Thank you, Gretch. We, the Philistines, appreciate you.
And we seek your wisdom.
Bessent added that the economic visions presented by Harris and former President Donald Trump could not have been more stark. He noted that the Trump economy helped almost every American as real wage grew for the bottom 50% of Americans. In contrast, he said the Biden-Harris policies ignited the greatest inflation in 40 years. All they did was spend.
Money.
Bessent said the bottom half of Americans have been in a recession for the last 2 years, saying that Harris and Biden have wiped out the middle class. Yeah, like that. The market would be jarred by a Harris victory, especially if the Democrats kept the Senate and win the House. If there's a Democratic trifecta, watch out, he continued. Bessent charged that the economy would be primed for a big rally if Trump were to win the presidency, Republicans keep the House, and the GOP flip the Senate. Well, that's about all I have for you guys today. Don't forget to, of course, drop a like on this video and subscribe because it really helps me. You get entered in a chance to win a $50 Amazon gift card, so do that. Do it for that, if for nothing else. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ChrisChella_Jr. See you in the next one. Bye.